Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, or hello if you're new. My name is Amy and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the fact that we have just bought a house. This is my first video of filming here, so please do bear in mind the fact that I am probably going to change up the background a bit, and I'm not sure how this room's going to sound because it's a lot larger than the room I was filming in before. So I will get there. It's just kind of like trying to work out where to film. It's always a bit of a struggle when you go into a new place. But this video, as you can probably tell, is going to be a lot different to my usual hair care content where I normally focus on hair masks, shampoos, conditioners and hair treatments. So that content will be resuming in my next video. I just wanted to film a video like this talking about our journey because I watched so many of these videos when I was buying a house, planning to, when I didn't know what was next in the process. So I kind of wanted to add my experience to the internet. Now, what I can say is that everyone's house buying experience is completely different to the next. And so I'm hoping that my experience is somewhat helpful for other people to know, but do bear in mind that every single house buying journey is so different. So I hope that this helps anyone that is thinking about buying a house or in the process, don't know what to expect, don't know the time frames, and sometimes when you're in the process it feels like you're never going to get the other side of it. So I'm hoping this video does act as a resource for anyone starting or about to do it. So with that all said and done, let's dive straight into the video. So I'm not going to do like two parts of this. This video is going to include every single bit of information. So I'll try and timestamp it down below if you want to know about a particular like journey point, because you can very easily split it up, but it also merges into one. So I'll do my best just to make it a little bit more easier to find what you're looking for. But I guess the first thing that I'm going to mention is the fact that from start to end, our house buying journey in terms of making an offer and then getting the keys took 11 weeks, which I completely appreciate the fact that this year that is actually really fast. And those 11 weeks went so slowly for me because you just don't know where you're at really at any point of that journey. So it's really difficult to kind of gauge how long things are going to go on for until you get to the end, obviously. So things took what felt like forever, but actually in the grand scheme of things, 11 weeks is pretty average kind of pre-pandemic. But during COVID and during like the stamp duty holiday and things like that, 11 weeks was really considered quite a quick process and a quick turnaround. So that's the initial time frame that we kind of started and ended on. And the house that we ended up buying was a 4-bedroom detached house in our hometown in North Devon, which I just absolutely love. I love living here, and the location that we specifically bought, it's so strange, and you may or may not believe in the law of attraction, and for those that don't, that's fine. But I have a law of attraction journal that I started at the beginning of the year, and the location that we're in now was always my like most desirable location, but no houses around here fell within our price range until this one came up. And so it was so mad because I had literally written in my law of attraction book that I wanted to live in this specific location, like a very specific part of town. It's not very big. I kind of knew where I would like to be, even if it was like, you know, in years and years to come, this would be my ideal location. I wrote it down in that book, and you know, here we are. And it's just mad that those things aligned. And I just, you know, take it with a pinch of salt if you don't believe it, but for me, I truly believe that it's mad that this house came up within our price range in like a row of houses that are worth so much more than our house. And it's just like, that shouldn't have happened, but it did. And it just makes me feel so happy because I'm in a location now that I can genuinely see myself living in forever. And I'm hoping that this house will actually become our forever house because it ticks all the boxes in terms of size. The living room, which was always our main focus in terms of a property, is the largest room, which is something we really wanted. Our living room is definitely our like family hub where we spend so much time together. And so for me, like having a living room that we can't like compromise on was really important. So again, ticks all of those boxes. I'm not going to do a house tour separate to this video. The reason being is that because I see ourselves living here forever. I do find that I don't want to share too much. I don't want to share kind of where windows are or access points are, and things like that just scare me a little bit more now that I'm a mum. And also because I'm a mum, I have a 2-year-old that of course I want to just protect, and I don't want to share too much about like our lives online that could cause some kind of risk. So I'm not going to do a house tour, but I will be showing like different pictures on Instagram, so you can definitely see like room transformations or like decor and stuff, and I'll be posting that there. But generally like a walkthrough of the house is something I'm just not going to do. I always thought I would, but now I'm here, I just feel like it's ours and I want to keep it really, really close. So that won't be coming. Again, I hope that this video answers any questions you have, and if at any point I miss anything that you really want to ask, just leave them in the comments down below. Just leave a question down below. I answer pretty much every single comment I get, even from videos that are like years and years old, so I will get to you and I will answer it. So our house was listed with an estate agent, which is obviously very, very common, but some people do buy privately. It's completely up to you. We were first time buyers during this process, and I shared previously in like a buying a house playlist, there's tons of videos there how I saved money to manage to save for a deposit, and that was the hardest goal that we've ever had to do, because house deposits are mad amounts of money, and then it's also like the solicitor fees and legal fees on top of that, and if you have to pay stamp duty, things like that on top too. So I will talk a little bit more about like specific costs, because I think it's helpful to know what you need to consider on top of your deposit, because again, I had a rough idea before, but going through the process means I can share my experience and my costs with that as well. So if I start at the very beginning, it doesn't start with viewing houses, it starts with getting a mortgage in principle, either yourself or through a mortgage advisor. Now what I would recommend is going through a mortgage advisor. They will understand your circumstance, understand the kind of ballpark that you're looking into, and then also help get you the best rate with the best interest. So we have a bit of a funny story in terms of a mortgage advisor. So initially we went with just the most highly rated mortgage advisor in our area on Google, and so I just found that that was a good way to just really gauge who was the best and who had the best kind of feedback. So we went with them, and they took ages to reply, did not get back to emails, stood us up for a call. Like, I had such bad energy from this company, and as someone that works with clients at work myself, I would never be able to treat a client like that. Like, that's terrible. And so he eventually got back to us about like estimated prices of what he thinks we could borrow, and it was way below what we thought. And we have things like a car on finance and nursery fees that all kind of come into how much you can borrow, but I just knew that that figure initially was too low and didn't fit what we had envisioned. So I kind of left him to boil a little bit, because he was being terrible at getting back to us anyway, so he wouldn't notice that we hadn't communicated with him for a little while, and I just wanted to get a second opinion. So if you talk to a mortgage advisor that you are unsure that the information they provided feels right, get a second opinion. For us, the second mortgage advisor we spoke to was the one that saw us through this process and secured us a mortgage that was exactly what we imagined we would be able to borrow, was enough for us to buy our essentially dream house in an area that we absolutely love, and was able to get us the best rate for our circumstance, and got a 5-year fixed rate with that as well. And the first one just didn't understand like certain elements of paychecks and just wasn't very forthcoming with information. So if you feel like you're not being respected by a mortgage advisor, just get a second opinion. And the mortgage advisor, the way in which you pay for them is, for the one that we went with, we paid once the mortgage had been issued. Once that was all done and confirmed, we just paid him £295 to conclude kind of that mortgage process, and he did all that paperwork for us, just asked us a few questions, went through our pay slips, asked for information that they need to do that, and then also when applying for the mortgage, if there was anything that the lender kind of questions on your pay slip or on your bank statements or anything like that, he liaises with you to answer those questions so that you can get them to that underwriter as quickly as possible. And he was honestly amazing. So that is my biggest thing, is that get a second opinion if you feel like you need it. At the end of the day, they're working for you, and so you want someone that is reliable, quick at communicating, otherwise the process will take 10 times as long, and just someone that understands you, but like properly understands you, and therefore can understand the best rate to get for you and your mortgage. So really pleased that we got a second opinion, and then I just told the first one that like we had found someone that was able to secure us more money. Just be honest with them, because they know basically how to improve and how they lost a client initially. And generally, to get a bit of an idea, it's kind of your combined salaries. If you're buying with someone or if you're on your own, it's normally and averagely 4.5 times your salary is what you can borrow. So that gives you a bit of a guide, and obviously any kind of debt that you have, whether that is actual debt or things on finance and stuff, comes away from that end kind of figure. But we definitely had an idea of what we could borrow, and he was able to secure that exactly how we imagined. So he was brilliant. And yeah, I would just say find a mortgage advisor. We wouldn't be able to borrow the amount that we borrowed going through a bank ourselves. It's really strange. I don't know how they do it, but obviously they have access to the best rate and have relationships with companies that we don't. And so he was able to advise us on the best kind of package, I would say, for us. And yeah, it worked out so well. So once you've got your mortgage in principle, you need that to be able to view houses. And when we actually rang the estate agents about asking to view this house and also another house, the first thing they asked is the fact that, do we have a mortgage in principle? The reason being is not the estate agents being like picky, it's just because they want to make sure that you are a prospective buyer and you're not someone that just wants to look at houses, I suppose. Especially during COVID, that was particularly important, that they were dealing with people that were genuinely interested, as opposed to like wasting their time and perhaps putting people at risk if they didn't have to. So we basically emailed the estate agents the agreement in principle that you get from a lender, and that will let them know how much you are likely to be able to borrow. Again, a mortgage in principle is not a guaranteed figure. However, for us, we were able to secure basically all but £600 of that. So it is pretty accurate, and it gives you a really accurate ballpark. But in order to view properties, that's what you need. So as I mentioned, we viewed this place. We actually viewed this place first. We also viewed another place. So this place was a 4-bedroom house, which was more expensive, and we also viewed a 3-bedroom house, both of which were detached, and that was important for us because we have a young child and also hope to grow our family in the future as well. So I just don't like the idea of hearing other families' noise. Again, very nice problem to be able to choose. But in our area, detached houses are actually more common than kind of terraced houses. So detached houses was something really important to us. But again, when you're looking at houses, you're able to then fine tune what's important to you, what do you and your partner like, or you and your friend, or whoever you're buying a house with. You're able to decide, okay, like genuinely, what are we looking for now that we know our price range? So we viewed this property, and what is mad to me is the fact that you view a property for 15 minutes, I would say, maybe 20 at a push, and that helps you decide how to spend the most amount of money you're ever going to spend on a thing. And so obviously people will have second viewings and stuff. We actually only viewed this the one time. The reason being is that we followed other people viewing the property, and we knew that we really liked it based on the photos and videos shared online. We came and viewed it. We both knew that that secured that feeling, and we wanted to put in an offer because we didn't want to lose the property, because it ticks so many boxes. You kind of snooze and you lose sometimes with house prices. And again, at the height of the stamp duty holiday, house prices were going like that. Like houses were on and off the market within 24 hours because people were purchasing them so quickly. Even people weren't looking at houses and buying them. And the place that we live, Devon, is a kind of coastal area, and so people from London will often buy like second homes or just buy homes in the area without looking at them. Madness. But for us, we just knew that this place was so right and it was worth a shot, so we put in an offer. So putting in an offer is a really strange process, because typically you start under asking price because you want to try to negotiate a little bit off the price if you can. So we started off kind of the bidding £25,000 under asking price. That was rejected. However, we were able to negotiate the fact that we saved off the original asking price was £15,000, which again, during COVID times, houses were selling for over asking price. So we really consider ourselves super lucky that we were able to actually get an offer accepted less than asking price, because it was pretty rare to hear of that during COVID and everything. And for us as well, like, that amount off just meant that our monthly payments were slightly less, and we were able to like factor in our legal fees and things like that, so it made it a bit more palatable. But their original asking price was slightly too high for us in terms of what we could borrow, so we were really lucky that they actually accepted our offer. And the reason that they accepted our offer is because we were first-time buyers and we came with no chain, so we didn't have people relying on us, and we weren't relying on other people in order to buy the property. We were first-time buyers, and so that chain stopped there. And they had already found a house that they wanted to move into once they sold, and so I think that helped them be a little less patient and meant that we were able to secure the property. Luckily as well, they took the property off the market as soon as our offer was accepted, which again, I know that some places kept their house on the market until they completed on the property in case a higher bidder came along, and we were just so thankful that that didn't happen to us, because the house is so lovely that I don't know why there wasn't a higher bidder, but I think timing just worked really well in our favour. So yeah, we managed to save money off the asking price, and we were so happy. And that, as soon as they kind of accepted the offer, you go into the next steps. The next steps is then basically hiring a solicitor, enlisting a solicitor, and we had no idea like on solicitors. We were first-time buyers, like we have never gone through this type of process before. It was so new to us, and we just did not know like what to do next. Like no one gives you like a booklet on like the steps to buy a house, and we just felt like super like just overwhelmed with like decisions you had to make. So we had our offer accepted, and then our estate agent basically sent that through, and they kind of like confirm it all in an email and send you some documents to prove that like it's yours based on this price, blah blah blah. So with that, our estate agents recommended a solicitor, and through doing that they make a commission from doing that. However, because the only people to buy a property close to us is Rich's parents, and their solicitors were actually terrible during their process, unfortunately. Like that was the only recommendation that we could have had, and so for us we decided to go with the estate agent recommendation. And I'm actually so pleased we did, because the estate agents and the solicitors got on really well, which meant communication was really quick, and it meant that the estate agent was able to chase inquiries for us, and so that for us was a benefit. And I think if we were to like buy or sell again, obviously hopefully not, because the moving process was so stressful, but I would actually 100% go back to the same solicitor, because it was just such an easy process, and for something I know to be so stressful, they really put our mind at ease and did a lot of chasing for us to make sure that we could complete within that 11-week time frame, and it didn't go on too much longer. So yeah, we went with the estate agent recommended one. I'm sure most estate agents will recommend a solicitor. Most will probably have a referral scheme similar to ours as well. The solicitor we enlisted, and then they basically get to work in terms of sending you documents. We initially had to like sign a load of things to confirm the fact that we were putting in this offer, confirm the fact that we were enlisting the solicitors, and then also pay an initial payment to them to secure them as our conveyancing like team. And so we had to pay an initial £600, and then that came off of your final fees at the end, which was actually better for us, because that final fee that came at the end was a little less shocking, because £600 of that was already taken off. And obviously at the beginning you have like all your money in the bank because your deposit hasn't been taken yet. At the end, once your deposit is gone, you suddenly feel like really poor, because that money that you've saved for so long is gone. So yeah, I initially paid a deposit from them, and then they basically got to work in sending us loads of things, and then sending us like papers to sign, and we had to get like someone to watch us sign certain things as well to legitimize the fact that we signed the papers. So we had to like send loads of things different back, and like show our passport, and also like proof of address, and all those things that prove that you are you. They needed that information. So as soon as that solicitor bit is out of the way, you then need to enlist a surveyor, and plan a surveyor to come to the property that you're buying to basically do a survey on it. And so again, I didn't know those time frames, and once again our mortgage advisor actually was the one that was like, okay, now you've done that, this is what you need to do next. And I just had no one else told us when or where we should get a surveyor into the property. And that's like make or break of your decision to buy a property, because a survey not only tells you like the condition of a house or if there's any faults that they spot, but also goes to the lender to prove that they are helping you borrow against a house that's worth its value. And so obviously if they came into a house and they saw the ceilings all falling down and all the floorboards were pulled up and it was like an absolute state and like a tip and structurally terrible, they would advise the lenders to basically not borrow you the money because the house is not worth the value that it is, in short. But it also looks at tons of other things. So it will kind of look at what kind of appliances you've got. So they were the ones that pointed out that the fire in the living room was a gas fire, not electric. Just kind of like lets you know like the structure of the house in terms of like the rooms and anything that they see that they think might be an issue, or even just something worth you knowing in terms of both health and safety and like repairs. And like it was such a lengthy document, and also the most overwhelming document ever, because you're reading it and they have to cover themselves quite a lot. Various different additional checks to qualify the house as something you want to purchase. So we had Rich's mum and dad look through that and basically look through it as someone that had bought properties before, because if you're a first-time buyer, that document is the scariest document, and also the thing that makes you read it and think, is this even a good idea? Like, this is terrifying. They were able to go through it and actually say, right, this makes sense, this means this means this, which was quite nice. And also I had my dad look at it and he was able to kind of also say like, this is the only thing you should really be worried about. But yeah, the survey was really weird, but they advise you basically get the survey booked in as soon as possible so that can be done and all of their findings can be like filed through, and just something else to basically tick off the checklist. So we got that, we booked it, I think it was 1.5 weeks before it was done, and then they came and surveyed the property. And I was so nervous waiting for that survey because I have just no idea what was going to come up. Again, because you've looked at it for like 15 to 20 minutes once, you're kind of not looking at everything. You're kind of gauging the house and the size and the potential and stuff like that, whereas they look at it from like a structural point of view. And yeah, from someone personally that knows nothing about like houses other than the fact that you can decorate them and all stuff like that, that was really scary. But yeah, book in a survey as quickly as you can, and then you can get that finalized, especially if there is any kind of waiting times. There's kind of tons of surveyors kind of out there, so you don't have to be loyal to a specific one. It's just, I guess, the first one that you can find that's available. We just went with one that we were recommended and just booked through them, and that price was like hefty. I think that was like £590 for the house survey, like a terrible amount of money. But they kind of look at everything and determine whether it's good for you to invest in, so it's a good thing to obviously do. I know some people choose not to have surveys if they're buying houses with cash, but if you need a mortgage, then you will need to get a survey on the house, and it's like a certain type of survey that you will require, but your lender will let you know exactly what you need to do, or your mortgage advisor. If you're unsure, just give them an ask, because there are tons of different surveys you can get. So you can get like a homeowner one, a structural one, all different types. So just basically know what type you need before you do it, but just get that booked in as soon as possible. And then once the survey was all back and we shared the findings, not only personally but also shared a copy with our solicitor, they were able to find any inquiries raised through that and share that with the seller and ask them to get back on specific questions that the surveyor came back with that is worth knowing for the property, and then also ask specific questions about like boundaries and various different things like windows, gas surveys, boiler checks, guarantees, like any kind of thing that they can have to prove that there is a warranty on different elements of the house. They will try and get, they find out when like windows were put in, like generally so much stuff that they kind of found out for us. Again, they need to make sure that certain things are done. They also do various checks, so they do like checks on you to make sure you're legitimate. They do checks on the house in terms of like local searches, so that will let you know if there's like planning work around you or how close you are to like a water pipe, and various different things going back to when the house was built and the conditions of like build and stuff like that. And it also tells you as well if there was any planning permissions denied on the property, which luckily there was none for us. But yeah, there is just like tons of different things that they find out and then drip feed that to you eventually. So you get various different documents back at varying different points of the journey between after the survey and before you exchange. So this time here is literally just waiting for answers. So the seller will ask the seller's solicitor questions, they then have to get back to them, and then they send them to them, and all this back and forth. And also the sellers like fill out a document that confirms things they're leaving and things they're taking. So that might be like a cooker or curtains or blinds, or you know, like little things, even to the point of like a washing line. You know, all those different things, they itemize what they're going to be keeping to set your expectations. But it was the waiting for answers that took the longest, and we were waiting for answers up to the week before we exchanged. And what I would recommend at this point is just checking in with both your solicitor and your estate agent every week to find out what's going on. So your solicitor will be able to tell you in terms of if things come through or answers are received. Normally once an answer was received, we received that straight away, so we didn't actually have to chase our solicitor much, because we knew as soon as she got some information she would share that with us. But the estate agent obviously has a bigger picture in terms of the chain. So even though we were first time buyers and we were the start of a chain, we had the sellers that we were buying from, and then they were buying a property, and then luckily for us that their seller was able to move into a second property to cut the chain so we could actually exchange quicker. Whereas for some people it goes on and goes on and goes on. So the estate agent's job is to be able to see that bigger picture and actually feed back the fact that if there is a delay at this point in the chain and you're there, they know that and are able to share that with you to just set time expectations. So again, an estate agent is really crucial in terms of the admin side of things, because they're able to give you feedback and are just able to let you know where things realistically sit at any one time. And we checked in with our estate agent every week, and if they don't get back to you every week, I would just either phone them or email them just for an update. You're not pestering them, and that's something I definitely felt in the process. I was constantly chasing like the estate agent, because you just don't know, like you literally have no idea where things are at any one time. So she was able to basically break that down for me and say, we're here, this is likely to be here next, and then this is the time frame we're looking at. So yeah, that was definitely like something that I would feel less precious about doing next time, is chasing the estate agent, because they're able to chase people's solicitors and try to get the ball moving if there's any points that basically stop. So yeah, that was that process, and the waiting was just the worst because you can't do anything. And at this point, until you exchange contracts, people can pull out, you're able to stop selling, things can change. And it was just so much like anxiety getting to the point of exchange, because you could be like 10 weeks into a process and the sellers decide they don't want to sell anymore, and then you have to just start again. So you have to get the surveys again and all of these things that have to start again. It's just ridiculous. So up until the point of exchange is when no one can like pull out, everything is set in stone, and then you can start packing. We are someone that have a lot of stuff, and we also have a 2-year-old, so packing was always going to be something that took forever. So just before we exchanged, we actually started like decluttering and just getting rid of things we knew we wasn't going to move with, because it's easier to do that before instead of during the packing process. And then like when we talk about exchanging and completing on the property, we kind of started packing a little bit before. We definitely shouldn't have done that, and I don't recommend it, because genuinely if our sellers were to have pulled out before we exchanged, it would have been in their right to, and we would have been left with boxes that we packed up and nowhere to move to. But then when it came to the end of the process, we set a deadline in terms of when we wanted to complete by, and we actually moved end of June. So we did that in order for everyone to avoid paying stamp duty. So even for us as first time buyers, you get £300,000 like off stamp duty the first time. So if your house is £300,000 or less the first time around, you pay no stamp duty the first time, which is amazing because stamp duty can cost thousands of pounds when it comes to your second property or like you're buying on after. So the stamp duty holiday caused by the government because of COVID was a huge trigger in a lot of house sales because people were going to save such a huge amount of money by moving. But we actually would have had to have paid some stamp duty if it would to have spilled into July. But our sellers obviously pushed for end of June because they would have had to have spent a lot more. And considering they'd let us have the property for less than asking price, I really do believe that if we had let it trickle in too much further, they could have probably relisted the property and got asking price or more for it, which would have compensated for the stamp duty they would have had to have paid. So I'm really, again, I just feel like the stars really aligned in terms of timing, and they set their solicitors the deadline of wanting to do it before the end of June, and obviously everyone was trying to complete before the end of June. So when it came to exchanging and completing, we basically asked before we exchange our estate agent to check that that's not their plan to relist the property if they miss stamp duty, because it's a waste of everyone's time ultimately. But they said it was fine. They were guaranteed, because they had found another property and they were just willing to move. I think that kind of just helped the process along a little bit. So when it came to completing and exchanging, this was done so the wrong way around for us, and it was so stressful. So we were told that they wanted to complete by the 29th or 27th of June. I can't remember the exact date, but they gave that as their completion date before we had actually exchanged. So that was always the aim, and the moving day and the exchange of keys and everything, and that was what everyone had kind of earmarked for as the completion date. However, we had yet to exchange, and we exchanged the Thursday before the Monday. So that was so stressful. I've never had a weekend that has been as stressful as that one was. There was just so much packed into it. We were trying to do everything from like sorting out the final like finances to do with like solicitors fees. So in total, before stamp duty, so because we didn't have to pay stamp duty, our total legal fees were £1,600, which is an extortionate amount of money, but I also feel like that was a fair amount of money for a solicitor, because I know people that have paid a lot more than that, and then with stamp duty on top, that's where extra money does go in. So that was our total solicitor fees, was £1,600, and at the end we paid £1,000 because at the beginning we paid that £600 deposit. And then it was Operation Pack. So we were renting before we purchased our property, so they again don't advise that you give notice on a property until you've exchanged, because there is a slight chance, even if it's very small, that a seller can pull out and that house that you're moving into does fall through. But because we had had that confirmation from the estate agent that they wanted to complete and they weren't gonna basically relist the property, and they were really like set on selling, we decided to give notice on our rented property before we exchanged, because otherwise there's a 4-week overlap, and because we were exchanging and then completing in the shortest amount of time, we would have then had to have paid 4 weeks rent on top of a 4-week mortgage, or we risk saying to the sellers, no, like we're renting, we want to have the keys in a month's time, and for them to say absolutely not, because we'd have to pay an extra like £5,000, £6,000, £7,000 stamp duty. I don't even know how much it would have been. And then that again could have caused them to be like, in that case we are pulling out. Like, you don't know what triggers someone to change their mind. So we decided to give our notice slightly before, but let our estate agents know that we rent with, that if there is any issues, can we just raise that with them and basically like withhold our notice. And they said that that was fine, and so we did that, which was really lucky. And I know some estate agents aren't that willing to listen to you or be that flexible, so we were really lucky in that regard. And so now we're actually just waiting for the estate agents to get back to us in terms of how much like deposit that we get back and stuff, but anything is obviously better than nothing. So yeah, you exchange contracts. That is basically guaranteed that you are 100% moving into the property. It's going to be yours, which once you do that, like, you kind of like breathe a little bit, because hopefully nothing else can go wrong. Like, it's just a weight off your shoulder, because you're like, okay, like, we're definitely moving, like, it's all done, all this hard work has led to this point, and like, we're there, and it's amazing. So that was like the best feeling, but also the most stressful feeling, because you realize how much you've got to like pack and sort and do. And then when we have a toddler in the mix, just so stressful. Talk about the completion date as well, because that is like the most exciting day. So when you like buy a property, you get it the same day that the sellers move out, because you obviously, they give the keys to an estate agent and you pick them up. There's not that interim where someone comes in and like cleans it like if you rent. So we got the keys, it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the day of completion, and that's because the sellers are kind of given a time frame to be out by at least 1. So they had asked us if they could extend it by an hour just so that they could whiz around and give it a clean, which we said that was fine. So we got the keys at about 2 o'clock on the Monday, and we just came and had another look at it. Not only did we not view the property like until 3 months before we actually had the keys, we hadn't viewed it again in that time, which some people do. If you want to take measurements or you want to see it again, you're absolutely in your right to see it as many times as you want, I suppose. But for us, like, we knew what it looked like. I think you kind of just really want it to be yours. You don't necessarily want to view it again because you want to know information. You just want to see it as your house. But going and viewing it where it was just completely empty and like it was ours was the maddest thing. And the first thing we started doing after we kind of re-explored everything, like looked in the loft and looked at all the cupboard space and like really got into like every nook and cranny to have like a good look at everything, was we started pulling off the wallpaper in the living room. So I'm actually filming in my living room now, and this was originally like, this colour here was like a dark grey, and they had like a purple flower wallpaper. So literally on that first day we were ripping off the wallpaper, and Rich painted this room white, which was something I really wanted because we have like brown furniture, and I think that the brown adds really nice warmth. But there was like loads of kind of like nicks in the wall and stuff that I think for a living room, because it was the room that was most important to us, I just wanted to cover. And white is such a good background because you can add colour to it, which I just really wanted. And then we painted like Heidi's room, and we have the like third bedroom as a playroom. Then we also have a spare bedroom that is a bit of a like gaming setup for Rich, because again for us I just wanted the living room to be super homely. So he has like a gaming room, I can film in the living room subject to me finding like a good space to filming. And yeah, like it's just set up so well, but it also has space for us to grow into. Obviously we are not a family at the moment that requires 4 bedrooms, we only technically need 2, and because there's me and Rich and then also Heidi, but again hopefully we can expand our family in the future and another child can have another bedroom, and then we can keep the spare bedroom for whether that be Rich's gaming stuff or it becomes like an actual spare bedroom with a bed in the future. It's good to have that space that we wouldn't then crave to move out of if we were to have bought the 3-bedroom house we viewed. And the good thing also with this property is that there is potential to extend on top. So it's kind of like half bungalow but then 2 stories at the back. It's a really strange kind of layout, but it also means that that top half we could actually extend forward and have it as a really large house, which I think would be the plan eventually. So even in time, if we wanted a bigger house and we were able to, you know, release money or whatever, like save whatever that process might end up being, is that we have the potential to extend on the top of the house as well, which would create more rooms and then also add value to the house in time, which is something that's quite unusual. And specifically in this area that I live, is houses that have the potential to extend that don't lead onto someone else's boundary. So it's good to have a house that has potential but is also very much big enough for us now and wouldn't need extending for us to live in it forever, but it's nice to have the option if we so wish to do that. But now is just the time for us to personalize it, change everything to as we want it to be, and that process is going to take us time, like get new furniture. But the good thing with owning your house is that you can change literally anything and everything. So like painting it as you want, putting furniture up, putting whatever you want up, and no one can say you can or can't do that. And obviously you could have pets here and no one matters. And so yeah, it's just been the most amazing experience, and I really wanted to just share my experience because, as I mentioned, I watched so many videos similar to this, and I just always like creating content of similar videos that I consumed at the time. So yeah, I hope this video has been interesting to anyone that is looking to buy a house or is in the process right now. As I mentioned, if you have any questions that I haven't answered, leave them in the description down below. I appreciate this video has been probably the longest ever, but I didn't want to split it up and do different sections. It's better for it to all be in one place, and then I'll get back to doing hair care videos in my next video. But yeah, that's all from me today. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys super soon. Bye.